June 28th, 2024, 10:42 a.m. To most, it is just another Friday morning. But to Iryna Zarutska, 27 years old, it is part of the fragile rhythm she has carefully built since arriving in the US. Born in Ukraine, Iryna had fled the devastation of war only a year earlier, leaving behind a family and a life shattered by the conflict. Her home city, once a vibrant hub, was now a ghost of itself, scarred by rubble and memory. She carried the weight of her past, a quiet strength forged in displacement. Friends describe her as determined, her optimism unshaken despite tragedy. She spoke often of building a new life, of going back to school, of someday bringing the rest of her family to safety. She believed in tomorrow, her cousin would later say. It was a testament to her spirit that she was now a student at a local community college, balancing 2 part-time jobs and English classes. Every day, this train was her lifeline, a bridge between her small, rented room and the promise of a better future. At 10:42 a.m., she boards the Blue Line train at the Archdale station. She chooses a seat by the window, denim jacket folded neatly across her lap, her phone glowing faintly in her hand as she texts a friend, "On the train now. See you soon." The text message is a simple, hopeful anchor in a day that will soon spiral into horror. 10:45 a.m. Another figure steps onto the same car. Tall, gaunt, jittery. His name, DeCarlos Brown Jr. At 32 years old, he is already a name familiar to police. More than a dozen arrests, assault, trespassing, threats. Diagnosed with schizophrenia, but rarely consistent with treatment. His mother, a woman who had spent years fighting for her son, had begged for help, telling authorities her son was a ticking bomb. In a desperate call to a social worker just months before, she had pleaded, "You have to do something. He's going to hurt someone, or get hurt himself." The pleas, like so many before, went into a system designed to fail. A judge's name echoes in the corridors of the courthouse, Judge Alan Williams. In May of 2024, Judge Williams had released Brown on a signature bond despite a litany of felony charges and a police report detailing erratic, violent behavior. He wasn't a danger to the community, the judge had reasoned. A tragic, fatal miscalculation. The documents from that day, May 17, 2024, 9:30 a.m., would later be presented as evidence of the system's fatal flaw. They detailed the specific charges: communicating threats, assault on a public official. They contained psychiatric evaluations from jail staff, reports that flagged Brown's severe paranoia and violent ideations. Yet, the black ink of a judge's signature, a routine formality, overrode all of it. A prosecutor, a young man named Aaron Mills, had stood to object, his voice firm. "Your Honor, the defendant's mental state is a clear and present danger. We have reports from his own family expressing fear." Judge Williams had simply waved his hand, dismissing the concern. "He's not a flight risk. Let's not clog the system." Today, Brown looks wild-eyed. Witnesses later recall how he muttered to himself, pacing the aisle, his lips moving in a frantic rhythm. He clutched a small backpack to his chest, rocking it as though protecting something precious or dangerous. His paranoia, a shadow that had haunted him for years, was now a living creature in his mind. He believed a man-made substance was coursing through his veins, poisoning him. The voices, his constant companions, were getting louder. They told him someone on this train was responsible. Someone had put the poison inside him, and he had to stop it. One passenger, a young professional named Emily, remembers glancing at him and feeling her stomach knot. "Something about the way he looked through you," she said. "Like you weren't even real." Another passenger, a grandmother on her way to visit her grandchildren, moved her bag closer, pulling it to her lap. The unease on the train car was palpable, a shared, silent tension. 10:47 a.m. Brown stops pacing. He locks his gaze on Iryna. She notices, shifting uncomfortably in her seat, a flicker of unease crossing her face. The quiet hum of the train is the only sound as the tension tightens. Passengers will later say he whispered something, though no one could catch the words. What is certain is what came next. Brown's hand slipped inside his jacket and emerged gripping a knife. In a flash, he lunges. The blade arcs downward, again and again. The sound is sharp, wet, horrifying. Iryna screams, a cry cut short as she stumbles backward, her arms raised in desperate defense. Blood spatters the seats, streaking the window. Panic erupts. Passengers scatter, some diving to the floor, others sprinting toward the exit. The scream of a passenger mingles with the high-pitched shriek of the train's brakes. One man slams his fist against the emergency button, shouting for the conductor to stop the train. The conductor, hearing the commotion and the alarm, pulls the emergency brake. The train screeches to a halt between stations, a symphony of terror. 10:48 a.m. A young woman named Sarah freezes in her seat, unable to move, her eyes locked on the scene. She later tells police, "It was like watching someone possessed. He didn't stop. He didn't even blink." Another recalls Brown muttering, "They put it in me. I have to stop it. I have to stop it." The train doors open with a hiss, but the passengers are too terrified to move. By the time the train screeches to a halt at the next station, Iryna collapses to the floor. Her phone slides from her hand, its screen cracked, the last words she ever sent a haunting epitaph. Blood pools beneath her, creeping across the gray linoleum. She gasps once, twice, then goes still. 10:49 a.m. Transit officers, responding to the emergency alarm, rush aboard, weapons drawn. Passengers point, screaming, "It's him. He has the knife." Brown stands near the center of the car, the blade dripping crimson, his chest heaving. He resists as they tackle him, shouting incoherently about toxins and a man-made substance controlling his body. His words are a stream of paranoia and rage. It takes 3 officers to pin him to the ground, the knife finally clattering to the floor. As medics rush onto the train, the scene is a portrait of pure chaos. Iryna is rushed out on a stretcher, medics working furiously, but her injuries are catastrophic. 11:12 a.m. At Atrium Health Hospital, doctors fight to save Iryna. Tubes, machines, compressions, every desperate measure. But her wounds are catastrophic. At exactly 11:12 a.m., she is pronounced dead. Word spreads quickly. A Ukrainian refugee, murdered in broad daylight on public transit. And her killer? A man who should never have been free. As detectives piece together Brown's history, the horror deepens. Arrest after arrest. Reports of violent behavior. Hospitalizations. Judges releasing him. Hospitals discharging him. Police arresting him only to see him walk free days later. For Charlotte, this wasn't just another act of violence. It was a wake-up call. By evening, candles flicker outside the station where Iryna's life ended. Strangers kneel to leave flowers. A photo of her smiling, taken before she fled Ukraine, is taped to a pole, her face a haunting reminder of what was lost. A vigil is held, voices breaking as they chant her name. And for the first time, headlines turn not only to the tragedy of her murder, but to the man at the center of it all. Who was DeCarlos Brown Jr.? And why was he walking free when so many had seen the danger coming? June 28, 2024, 11:45 a.m. The news begins to spread. First on police scanners, then on social media feeds. A woman stabbed on the blue line. A suspect in custody. Rumors multiply before facts can catch up. By noon, reporters are swarming outside the hospital. Microphones flash. Cameras roll. And slowly, the story comes into focus. Her name was Iryna Zarutska, 19 years old, a Ukrainian refugee who had come here to escape violence, only to be murdered in what should have been her safe haven. 12:30 p.m. Charlotte Mecklenburg Police Department holds a press briefing. The chief steps forward, sweat beading in the North Carolina heat. His voice is tight as he confirms what the community is dreading. The victim succumbed to her injuries. The suspect is in custody. A pause. The reporters push forward, shouting questions about motive, about identity. Finally, the chief gives the name, DeCarlos Brown Jr. In living rooms across Charlotte, families stop what they're doing. Phones buzz. Did you hear about the stabbing on the train? The name is familiar to some. They've read it in crime blotters. They've seen his mugshot in past arrests. But few could imagine the horror of what unfolded on that train. By 2 p.m., the courthouse records are already being pulled. More than a dozen arrests, stretching back years. Trespassing, assault, threats. Each time, Brown was released. Each time, warnings were ignored. In May 2024, Judge Alan Williams had granted him a signature bond, essentially allowing him to walk free without posting money, despite a record-screaming danger. Now, that decision hangs like a noose over the courthouse. 3:15 p.m. Journalists dig deeper. They uncover police reports describing Brown's violent paranoia. One officer's note reads, "Subject claims people are poisoning him, exhibiting signs of severe psychosis. Recommended psychiatric hold." And yet, he was released within 48 hours. By 4 p.m., the public anger is boiling over. On social media, hashtags trend. #Justice for Iryna and #system failed her. Comment sections overflow. Her blood is on the judge's hands. Why was this man walking free? If the system had done its job, she'd still be alive. June 29th, 2024, 9 a.m. The morning after the murder, Charlotte wakes to front-page headlines. The Charlotte Observer's banner reads, "Refugee killed on Blue Line." Photos of Iryna, smiling in Ukraine, are printed beside Brown's scowling mugshot. The contrast is devastating: innocence against madness, promise against destruction. At 11 a.m., a vigil begins at the Archdale station. Candles flicker in the daylight. A small crowd gathers: refugees, students, neighbors, even strangers who never knew her. Someone places sunflowers on the platform, the national flower of Ukraine. Her cousin speaks through tears. She survived bombs. She survived war. But she couldn't survive our broken system. The crowd murmurs, grief turning to fury. Meanwhile, Brown sits in a jail cell, rocking back and forth, muttering about toxins and voices. In his first court appearance on June 30th at 9:05 a.m., he looks wild-eyed, wearing a standard orange jumpsuit. Reporters fill the benches. When the judge reads the charge, first-degree murder, Brown interrupts, shouting, "They poisoned me. They put it in me." Deputies restrain him as gasps ripple through the courtroom. July 1st, 2024, 2:45 p.m. The district attorney's office holds a press conference. Prosecutors confirm they will pursue the maximum penalty. They outline Brown's history, dozens of warnings, unheeded pleas from his mother, repeated hospitalizations. But one sentence cuts the air like a knife: this tragedy was preventable. The room falls silent. Preventable. A single word that crystallizes the outrage. In Ukraine, the news reaches Iryna's family. Her mother, still trapped in a war zone, learns through a shaky video call that her daughter, who fled for safety, was butchered on a train. "Why?" she cries. "Why didn't they protect her?" The screen freezes on her tears, a haunting reminder that grief has no borders. July 3rd, 2024, 7:18 p.m. The city of Charlotte holds a candlelight vigil downtown. Hundreds gather, holding photos of Iryna. Refugee groups, advocacy organizations, students, all stand shoulder to shoulder. The mayor speaks, calling her death a collective failure. A violinist plays softly, the melody swallowed by sobs. In the front row, Iryna's friends hold each other, whispering the words she used to say. She believed in tomorrow. But while the community mourns, the legal storm builds. Civil rights attorneys announce plans to sue the county for negligence, arguing that Judge Williams' decision to release Brown directly led to Iryna's death. Talk radio lights up with fury. Should judges be held accountable? Should dangerous repeat offenders ever be granted release? The debate rages. July 10th, 2024, 8:30 a.m. New evidence surfaces. Text messages from Brown's mother to social workers just weeks before the murder. In one, she writes, "Please, my son is not well. He's talking about toxins again. He needs help." The reply? A promise of a follow-up that never came. The messages leaked to the press, igniting even more outrage. She begged for help, headlines scream. The system turned away. By mid-July, the story of Iryna Zarutska is no longer just a local tragedy. It is national. CNN runs the headline, "A refugee escapes war, only to be killed by neglect." Editorials demand reform. Advocates call for stricter bail standards, better mental health interventions, accountability for judges who ignore red flags. But for Iryna's family, none of this brings her back. At her memorial service on July 15, 2024, held at a small church in Charlotte, the pews are packed. Sunlight streams through stained glass windows, painting the room in soft colors. A pastor reads from her diary, recovered from her apartment, "I believe in tomorrow." Those words, once a testament to hope, now feel like a cruel echo of everything stolen from her. Her story ends in blood and silence, but its aftermath burns like fire. Iryna's name becomes a rallying cry for change. And in every headline, in every courtroom debate, in every candle lit in her memory, the same question lingers, unanswered. Who failed her? Here at Crimes Uncoded, we're not just telling crime stories. We're breaking down the legal codes that define them. Make sure to subscribe, because next up, the perfect murder and the law that couldn't touch it.